Let's try this again. And when I mean this, I mean the vinegar and steel wool concoctions. I'm in the garage right now. I have everything set up, and I'll show you what I have. We have, now let's zoom you out a little bit. You're too close. We have 2 full pads of steel wool and 2 half pads. 4 jars. 1 large pot with a little bit of water in it, and 1 empty pot. Then over here I have my 2 types of vinegar. I'm using from the same company, Allen's. Picked this up at Safeway. So I'm using an apple cider vinegar and a regular white vinegar. What I'm planning to do is pour vinegar into a jar, then put it in there to warm it up, get it to a boiling state. Then I'll add the steel wool to the vinegar. The reason I have this here is because it's nice and cold out, so I want to keep the jars warm. I don't want to add the boiling vinegar and have the jars break and crack on me. Hope that makes sense. Unfortunately, I don't have my tripod, so I'm going to have to sit you on the hood of my vehicle and try leveling you out as best as I can. Then we'll get underway. So hold on for a few minutes and we'll get going. Okay, let's get things going here. Turn on propane. Let's start with regular vinegar. Right up to there. So I filled the vinegar to that level. Pour the vinegar into that. Now while we're waiting, what I plan on doing with the steel wool, I've watched a lot of videos. Many of the videos were saying to cut up the steel wool so that it will dissolve in the vinegar concoction. I came up with another idea. The steel wool will unravel. Just stretch it apart. Why go through all the process of cutting it and dulling whatever you're going to be cutting it with? Just stretch the thing apart. This way the vinegar can access every single strand of steel wool. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly how all this is supposed to be done. Some videos, they said cut up the steel wool into fine pieces so it can dissolve. Other videos, they said to use, just to throw the steel wool in there in one big chunk, then you pull it out and use the steel wool as your brush. Seems kind of counterproductive, but I don't know. So we pull it. Let's lower you a bit more. Ooh, that's not lower. That's a little too high. We just want to warm you up. Keep you warm, not boiling. That could be an explosion. I shut that one off. Don't need an explosion. Okay, so we have the steel wool pulled apart quite nicely. So I'm just going to gently roll it up. Okay, put that over here. And we're going to put it inside the jar. Just like that. So we're just waiting for the vinegar to come to a boil. I just threw a plate inside here to warm it up a little bit. Okay. Let's put this on here. This would probably crack if I was just to put the hot jar on here. Well, the jar then put the boiling vinegar into it. Probably still will crack anyway. Yes, something else I can put under there. Anything at all. This box. Okay. This part's gonna be cool. Let's move this just a tad more. Alright, the vinegar's to a boil. This is cool. Yeah, clearly boiling. So I'll take that off the heat. I'm going to lower that a tad. Okay, clearly boiling. Let's just let this cool off a little bit. See? Not boiling anymore. What do you think is going to happen when I add it to this steel wool? It starts boiling again. Ooh, I might have put too much vinegar in there. Check that out. That is so cool. So, I'm not going to handle that with my bare hands. I actually have this thing used for canning. So I'll grab the jar next to it, put it here, put you back. Did you go all fuzzy on me? Are you focused again? I can't tell if you're focused. Alright. So, we won't add so much vinegar this time. That was overflowing. Put this back up here. Add that vinegar. Now, we're going to do the same thing, but with only half a pad. The reason I'm going half pad and full pad is because I don't know which stain, well, not stain, but which concoction will work better as a stain. Should it only use half a pad of steel wool, or should it use a full pad of steel wool? I don't know. Because with the more steel wool you add, the more powerful the stain will be. So I don't want to stain my wood and then realize it's too dark of a stain. It's easier to add stain than it is to remove it. I'd have to sand it down, pain in the butt. So, one stretched apart steel wool again. Gently roll that up. Forgot to turn the heat up. That's smart. And this vinegar is still boiling. Just using this to poke the steel wool back down under the vinegar. Well, I guess since I'm waiting, I'll pull this one out and add this apple cider to it. Again, keep it a little less since that overflowed. It is right at the very top, and oh, apple cider vinegar stinks. And the reason I'm using two different types of vinegar is people are claiming to have had different results with different vinegars, so we just have to see which one works best. Apple cider time! Check it out! Crazy bubbling! This is the one with the full thing, and look, it's still bubbling away. Yes, I was a science nerd in school. Whoa, does that stink! And again, boiling like crazy. Can you see that? Okay, that's done. As I pour a bunch of vinegar on everything. I'm just going to move this one over very carefully. I'm going to move this to over here. Move this back here. Those are red hot. That's going to bring that to a boil, possibly crack the jar, so I don't want that happening. So that was my plan for the vinegar steel wool stain, if you want to call it that. This one here is the first one I did, and it's still boiling. This water is not that hot. These jars actually heated up the water this much. So I'm going to leave this in here for a minute. I'm going to have to go in the house, find the lid for this thing. All off camera, I'm going to wrap all this up, put my propane stove away, put my propane tank away, get this back outside, find the lid for that thing, and get it inside the house without killing the cats. Then I'll set it up downstairs. I'm going to label each of the jars so I know which is which. So I know that these two are the full steel wool pads. These two are the half steel wool pads. This is regular vinegar. This is the apple cider. I know what they are now, but I'll forget in a couple of minutes. So just hang tight and I'll get this all set up. For what you're going to experience is like 2 seconds. It's probably going to be about an hour for me. So hang tight and you'll see the setup down in the basement. It's been a couple of hours and let's take a look at the vinegar concoctions. These are actually still quite warm. Let's bump these a little closer together. they're not really that dark. Let's get some light on them. There we go. Well, we know which ones are which, for now. So, to stop any confusion in the future, I made up a couple labels. Sorry. Trying to figure out how to do this one-handed. Vinegar, 1 steel wool. Vinegar, half steel wool. Apple cider, 1 steel wool. And the last one tears on me. Of course it does. Why wouldn't it? Right down the middle too. And apple cider with half a steel wool. Steel wool is sticking above the vinegar, so let's just push it down. And we'll put a cover on them. There we go. We'll come back in 5 days and see what they're like. I plan on straining the mixtures because from what I read, the steel wool that stays behind could turn your finished product more brown because of the rust. So I don't want that color. I'm going to strain it out first, then I'm going to see what it looks like. So see you in 5 days. So it's been 5 days now. Let's take a look at the vinegar and steel wool concoctions. Alright, first one up. Apple cider with half a thing of steel wool. Doesn't look like it's changed much. Apple cider with 1 full steel wool. Yeah. Vinegar with half a steel wool. Completely gone. From what I understand, that's the kind of thing we want. And seriously, this is vinegar with the full steel wool. Look at that color change. Excellent. So here, I have 4 pieces of wood. I'm going to stain the entire piece with their designated stains. We'll see how it changes color, what it will look like. Then if it doesn't look too bad or too good or whatever, I can add, so if I stain this entire piece, if this isn't dark enough, I can add another strip over here so I can see the difference between 1 layer and 2 layers, etc., etc. So, get you set up. Come on. Sorry, different tripod. The cloth I'm using here is known as bread cloth. You can't see it that well, but it's a finely woven cloth. It's almost like a cheesecloth. So that's what I want to use to strain this with. I'm wearing a glove because I really don't want to smell like vinegar. And I just realized a mistake. I have to run upstairs and wash this out. I'll be right back. Okay, put that jar back. Unscrew this. Yes, I talk to myself a lot. Throw that over there. So that is fully strained, and we'll just pour it back in. Alright, 4 new cloths. Because with any other stain, you apply it with cloth. Or you give it a rub down with cloth, I don't know. We'll see what happens. A lot of people have told me to use cloth instead of brushes. It can work into the grain better. Alright, let's leave that sit for an hour or so and see what happens. It's interesting. All the videos I've seen, people said, oh, you'll see changes instantly. And they have changed instantly. I guess with pine or spruce or fir, whichever this one is, it takes a little longer. So we'll come back in an hour or so and see what it looks like. Until then, well, it's been about an hour and this is what it looks like now. Through the LCD you really don't see the color difference. Let's just move you a bit. That's not helping too much either. I guess the white balance doesn't show it quite properly. I'm going to change the white balance, see if I can get the actual color that you're supposed to be seeing. Give me a second here. Well, I went through all the settings of the white balance and none of them can really show the color properly. I'm almost liking this one here. Almost. So, let's see what it looks like. Damn it. Let's see what it looks like with a second coat on. So we'll just do this, the bottom 2/3. Okay, let's give that another hour, see what happens. So it's been about 2.5 hours now since I applied the second coat. Things are getting darker. I'm liking it. I'm liking it a lot. Yeah, you can sort of see. Let's adjust you again. You still don't see the actual color. It's more brown than that. So let's apply a third coat. What's really funny? This is the color I'm going for. I'm trying to get this. Whatever this is made of, it's getting it. But I can't get it on the normal wood. Anyway, let's wait a couple more hours, see what happens. See you then. Well, it's been a couple more hours and this is what it looks like. Yeah, they look horrible through the lens here. You're probably not seeing what I see. Like, some of these colors are just beautiful, but through the LCD monitor on the back of the camera, this looks like crap. But I have to do some more experimenting. One more thing I'm gonna do, and it's gonna have to sit for the entire day. Flip them all upside down. And put a puddle on each one. We'll come back tomorrow and take a look at that, see what happens. So until then, have a good one. It's 24 hours later. Let's take a look what these stains look like. Whoa, almost lost you there. It's hard to tell, but this is actually a gray color. This is what I'm trying to go for. This one is very similar as well. That's just a much darker, a very dark gray. That's nearly black. It's like a deep purple black kind of look. So there's one more trick I can do. So this way I don't have to pour gallons of vinegar and steel wool onto each piece of wood. We're going to take the lids off each one. I said take the lids off. Get over here. And I'm using 3% hydrogen peroxide. Can you see that? There you go. And I'm going to put 1 tablespoon in each. Apparently this makes it go much darker. Yes, it does. Not like you'll tell with that back one. Do you remember how pale this one looked? This was like nothing in color. Alright, so just take a little bit and we'll smear it along the top here. Alright, now we'll come back again in an hour or so and see what these look like. I'm hoping this works. I really do. This is after a couple more hours. I'm guessing the peroxide didn't work as promised. This one is a little darker than the original. It looks like it might have got to the third stage. Yeah, you can't see a difference. So I'm guessing I'm just going to have to make some of this stuff. It's going to be either one of these two, because they're the color I'm looking for. Then just, that's actually quite rigid. So yeah, I'm just going to make one of these two. It's the apple cider vinegar with one steel or half steel, it doesn't matter. They look the same. Then just coat the wood with it. So one or the other. Come on, focus again. I'm going to try adding more peroxide and give it another shot, but I'll do that and I won't show the results. This is just almost a waste of time now. See, here's, yeah, you see it as a nice shiny sheen. It's almost the same as the second. Yeah, well. But anyway, that's knowledge for you guys if you ever want to do something like this. So that's it for now. Have a good one. I'm going back to the bus and we'll do some more work there. Good evening. It's February 20th and I decided to make a huge batch of steel wool stain. So what I have to make this concoction is a jar for measuring, pot, stove, propane cylinder, an extra one just in case, roughly 2.5 gallons of apple cider vinegar, a whack load of steel wool, and some containers to hold the mixture in. Let me get you guys situated and we'll make this happen. Alright. Get all this stuff off of here because I don't need it on there anymore. So the purpose of the jar, like I said, is only for measuring. I'm not going to do an exact measurement of 1 liter every single time. I'm just going to bring it, when I pour the vinegar in, I'm bringing it up to this point every single time. So I'm not going to say I used exactly 1 liter of vinegar to 1 pad of steel wool. Hopefully that won't be too close to the heat source. So all my bottles will be filled to here. Then I'll start the cooking process, or boiling process. Just getting the other jar ready. And again, I'm going to separate the steel wool. But instead of throwing it into the jar and letting it boil like I did last time, I'm just going to throw it into the bucket here. Then pour the vinegar on top. I'm going to do that with each pad and each thing of vinegar. Just hoping the vinegar doesn't melt the bucket. It shouldn't, but I'm hoping it doesn't. That would be bad. One thing I forgot was the hydrogen peroxide. I need 1 tablespoon or 15 mils of hydrogen peroxide per jar of vinegar and steel that I put in there. This is a 2/3 cup measuring cup, and this should be approximately the amount I need for the, I'm going to guess, 12 liters that I'm making. So here's to hoping that it works out. speed the last couple of pots up a little bit. I've been in the garage for about an hour now. Getting a little chilly, -9, not so pleasant. Now we add the hydrogen peroxide. I said I needed 2/3 of a cup for the 11 liters. I totally forgot that I was separating the two. So I need about 1/3 of a cup per container. So, let's get to it. About half of 2/3, so 1/3. This one requires a little bit more. Remember, it's not an exact science on this, so if you feel you want to put more hydrogen peroxide, put more hydrogen peroxide. Grab my little stir stick. Give that a whirl. Put the lid on. If you do plan to make something like this, make sure you do it outside or in their garage, or just make sure it's not in the house, or the person you love or who tolerates you will find a reason to hate you. This stuff stinks. So now I'm going to have to put this in the house to sit for the next 2 weeks maybe. Hopefully not so long. That's when I'm going to hopefully be staining some wood in the bus. I know you're thinking, why'd you make so much? It's not the color you wanted. It will be the color I wanted. What I have to do first is actually stain the wood with some very dark black tea. About 2 tea bags per cup. So for about 1 gallon of stain, like the tea stain, I'd need 16 tea bags. Just go to your dollar store or cheap store. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. Just grab the cheapest stuff you can find. Throw 16 bags into 1 gallon, boil water, and let it sit. I'd say let it sit for about a day, let it really brew. And when you go to start doing the stain, put 1 coat of stain on your wood, put 1 coat of tea stain on your wood, let it completely dry, so then put your vinegar steel wool stain on. It'll come out a nice gray color. Depending on how strong your tea is, what kind of wood, the stain, you might have to do it a second time. So once that vinegar steel wool stain has dried, put another coat of the tea stain, let it dry, then put another coat of the steel wool stain, and eventually you'll get the color you want if you're looking for a gray color. But that's it for now, and I'll catch you next time. So I'm all off camera, I did it again.